Laura Stickells is in as the sideline. What do we call him? Sideline or dugout reporter now?
That's a great question, and it's been a hot debate amongst other sideline reporters I know. But I think that they're calling within the organization the position the field reporter.
Field reporter.
But I typically, in the past, have gone by sideline reporter. I know there's no sidelines in baseball, but, whatever works, right?
Yeah, whatever works. Laura is the new person who will do the bulk of the game. She's with us today. John Radigan, Jeff Wilson. We got the Prophet over there, and Laura Stickells, who will work with Emily Jones. But Emily's taking a step back. Kids are getting older. Lots more activity going on with them. So the Rangers are looking forward to the future with someone like Laura. And there's a lot that we love about Laura already. I just met her today. But one of the things is she said she's basically like a diehard to the podcast. Been listening to getting used to the team.
Yes. I was telling Jeff as I was coming up here, I feel like this is, I'm a new level of fame for me being on this podcast because I have been listening to this podcast since I was interviewing for this position. Just trying to, get as much information as I can and kind of, immerse yourself in the Rangers.
Sure.
And so I've been listening to this podcast now for over a month.
Wise choice.
What percentage are we responsible for you getting this job?
That's a good question. Hard to put a number on it.
75?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
75%.
Laura, when I say the word Apollo, forget Nathan or whatever his name was. I say the word Apollo. What do you think of?
Apollo 11.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yes.
I wanted to. I mean, you're so young. I don't know if you knew. We had a whole space, mission after mission called Apollo. So good.
I'm very familiar with that. Yes.
Are you good?
Loved
Good.
Apollo 13 movie back in the day.
Yeah. That's good.
I think of Apollo Creed.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Loved it. Adrian.
Apollo.
Let's get to know Laura a little bit. First of all, how much time have you had yet, if any, have you chatted with Emily, gotten to know her at all yet?
Yeah, so I had a phone call with Emily like about probably a week after I got the job. And no, I mean, she's obviously great. She's somebody that growing up as I was getting into this industry, definitely looked at her stuff as an example. But no, I'm super excited to now get to work alongside her.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you have a week in spring training thus far?
Yes. So I was out there for a little less than a week. I was helping shoot some features for the RSN stuff. So I wasn't like out in the backfields as much as Jeff was. So I didn't get to see quite as much, but I did get to meet the guys kind of like
that's the thing. And I've done that. Yeah, I've done that role many times. You sit in a room and just guy after guy after guy comes in. But we usually have a lot of baseball questions, but then a lot of slice of life questions and stuff. So you get to know them in that way.
Definitely. No, it was really helpful. And Jared Sandler was there too. He was doing like he was doing a lot of the feature interview stuff too. So it was nice to get to sit in on those interviews and just kind of get familiar with everybody. And it's helpful getting to meet the guys more like one-on-one or just like in a situation where you get to shake their hand and meet everybody individually rather than being thrown in a clubhouse.
Yeah.
And it's like a free-for-all. So it's much better that way.
Yeah. A little more relaxed. And I mean, I'm sure they don't all love doing that stuff, but they finally just, I'm sure, are like, okay, this is what it is. And
exactly.
Generally when they get dragged over there by the PR people, it's kind of like, okay, I'm not going at this one kicking and screaming, right? Sometimes if you just approach them, to your point, Laura, in the clubhouse, you're like, I was going to go, whatever. And so anyway, this is a better way to meet them. Who'd you hate? No, I'm kidding. I know you didn't hate anybody. What were your impressions? Who stood out? Who did you like?
That's such a good question. I think I'd obviously heard a lot about the team and kind of their personalities coming into it. So I knew a little bit what to expect, but I would say, Josh Young is obviously, like one of the
fun guy. Yeah.
But I've heard to be, one of the most fun guys on the team. So he was definitely super friendly. I'm trying to think. It was exciting too to get to talk to our Stanford catcher, Malcolm.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
So that was a big one for me.
Yeah.
So that one was great. No, I honestly thought all of the guys really came in with, honestly, you were saying like sometimes they feel like they're getting dragged over there to do media. No, I really thought that everybody came in with really positive attitude was really friendly, and yeah, everybody I met I really liked.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's take a look at today's lineup, go through this a little bit, talk a little bit about what happened in spring training. And again, Jeff, we see Josh Smith at first base again today. They're going kind of back and forth with Peterson getting some reps over there, Josh Smith getting a lot of reps over there. But when you look at really the top 5 in that batting order, for sure, top 6 really, you could see that being the batting order a lot this season.
100% conceivable. Those are guys who, you actually saw that order for a lot of the postseason games.
Yeah,
Simeon, Seager, Carter, Garcia.
Those, yeah,
and at the time, Josh was batting toward the bottom of the order as he was coming off of the wrist thingy, but or thumb. It was a thumb. I'm losing track. But yeah, that looks pretty good. I think Wyatt Langford ultimately is still in there, high up in that batting order. But and then at this point, and Bruce Bochy was like, hey, don't read too much into these lineups. Some guys may be batting in the top just to make sure they're getting enough at bats. And during the regular season, they're not going to be that high in the order. So maybe ultimately Carter is that guy today, and you find him at the bottom of the lineup when the season starts. But again, he can hit anywhere. But yeah, Simeon and Seager, they're not going anywhere. They're 1-2 all the way. So that is kind of something that is going to be formulated, and you'll start to figure out as the last week of camp arrives, when these guys start playing a lot more together instead of one Group A on Monday and Wednesday and Friday, and Group B on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. That was just an example. But and you are seeing guys go back to back. I think this is Carter's second straight game. Josh Smith at first base, that's his second straight start at first base. So I'm mentioned this today. I don't think they're entirely sold on Jock Peterson as a first baseman.
Yeah,
I think he's not their first preference to back up Jake Berger. But it'd be nice to have, I guess.
Sure. I mean, that flexibility would be great to have. Yeah. So, yeah, you'll see how all that plays out. And Alejandro Osuna, I think, is one of the few guys he's played every day.
Well, those young guys.
Yeah, they'll get to. Yeah.
You could tell them to go wave in parking, cards, go to the lot and park cars, and they'd do it. And Osuna, the reigning minor league player of the year, had a real nice catch yesterday, diving catch against the Reds. He's a good kid, and he's one of the he's an intriguing guy that a lot of these guys are getting their first look at. And Tony Beasley's like, I want to see what this guy can do, and Tony's coaching the outfielders now, so he's somebody to watch. He's probably a major leaguer at some point.
Laura, have you had much chance to chat with Boch yet?
Yeah, so I met him when I was at spring training after one of our, just media availabilities. And then I actually did the sit down interview with him
nice.
When we were doing our feature stuff. And Boch is obviously an incredible guy, and, even amazing manager. And yeah, I'm really excited to be able to work with him.
And you grew up in Northern California, right?
So I grew up in Eastern California, so by Nevada. So yeah, not particularly close to Giants territory,
right.
But I wasn't really close to anything. So yeah.
Right, yeah. I was going to say, I didn't even know there was an Eastern California. I've never heard anybody characterize it like Eastern California.
Exactly.
So did you, what were your teams, not only in baseball, but who'd you follow growing up?
So, I didn't really, I wasn't super dialed into sports until really I got to high school. And growing up, my dad, he's from Boston. So I grew up, if I, had to pick a team that I was following, I would probably say, the Red Sox and the Patriots were the two teams that, my dad was a fan of. So I was a fan of. But that being said, we weren't a huge sports household. So I didn't watch a ton of sports really until I got to high school. And that's when I started watching college football. And that was kind of my introduction into sports, and I really like this. And then, it's kind of grown from there. But people ask me who did you root for growing up? I'm like, I didn't really, I guess if I had to pick, I would say the Red Sox and the Patriots. But I'm still finding my own fandoms, and I feel like it's just kind of like the teams I work for end up being the teams that I
Of
come to
course. Yeah, no,
appreciate.
it makes sense. And look, those experiences are so great because the better they are, right? The more they win, the more experiences you and all of us. I mean, anybody, Jeff, who's been affiliated as a rider, we all get to experience new and different things based on what they do. So we always say, I'm not really a fan, yet I really want them to win.
Yes.
The more they win,
Mhm.
the more cool stuff we get to do.
Well, yeah, but also like I feel like you become, as you get to know these people, and most of the guys and people that work in sports, for the most part, they're good people, and you want to see good people succeed. So you just kind of get invested in
So
that
true.
process.
And the other thing is you get to know these people as human beings.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what's really cool. And so I'm from Detroit and was a huge sports fan the whole time. And I remember in 2011 when the Rangers played the Tigers in the ALCS, and my family couldn't believe that I was rooting for the Rangers, right? I was a Tigers fan my whole life. And I'm like, I was helping, Nelly Cruz in the weight room. I was spotting, I was helping somebody's wife over here. Like, I know these people as people. I don't know anybody on the Tigers.
Exactly.
I mean, I can root for the uniform, but these are kind of quasi friends of mine, so it becomes a different animal in that regard.
That's what I always tell people. They're like, what do you mean you don't root for the Rangers? I'm like, well, you can't really do that. So I always say I root for the people.
Yeah.
Because if they're doing well, then that means good things for the team. But as long as they're doing well, that's good. So like when somebody hits a home run who's been struggling, you're like, all right, good for him. You know?
Absolutely.
It's like he needed that.
Yeah.
You can see a sense of relief. And if you've been talking to him about his struggles, you go up to him in the clubhouse and he
By the way,
give
when
you a knowing nod or something.
Yeah, and it'll probably show up in the chat. When I say I was helping Nelly Cruz in the weight room, like he probably dropped his phone or something. So, not like I'm spotting for him. Nelly's a big, strong guy.
He's holding up the bench. Hey, can you get that for me?
So in your experience with the minor league sports, I'm sure you've experienced similar type things. You it's hard to call them friends necessarily. It's not like people you hang out with, but you're certainly friendly and very well acquainted with these people.
Yeah, and like especially as a minor league reporter, you're talking to them a lot about the different things that they're working on when it comes to development and the struggles that they're going through. And being a minor league player is not necessarily the easiest thing. So you have these conversations with guys, and not all of them happen on camera, right? So you do get to know them, and I think what was so fun about being a minor league reporter is getting to see these guys that have worked so hard get those big league call-ups, right? That was probably the most satisfying and exciting part. Like I still remember seeing the Twitter notification come through that Nick Sogard was getting his big league call-up, and like literally pulling over on the side of the road because I was so excited for him because he's worked for it for so long. So you just want to see these people succeed more than anything because you get to know them and you see how hard they work day in and day out. And for the most part, like they're great guys. They're really nice to be around. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's great. And hockey, it's a different animal, and I covered a lot of hockey. I covered the Stars, and I was with them when they won the Stanley Cup in Buffalo in '99, which was really cool. But that's an interesting one. First of all, you talk about good guys.
Oh my. Yeah.
Those hockey players, I mean, they're good, most of them, good old Canadian boys, come from the farms of Canada.
Yes. I mean, the people that I met through covering hockey, and my first experience covering hockey, well, I guess the first time I was in Alaska, but then when I was in Boston, I was working closely with BU men's hockey, and it's like a family. Like if you work for a hockey team or you work around a hockey team, you feel like you're part of that family. And no, I mean, hockey players, it's funny. They remind me just like, of golden retrievers or like dogs or something. They're so fun and also, just great guys. And they've got their own kind of personality going. It's really something.
This Alaska thing intrigued me. Right out of college, you went to Alaska to work?
No. So my first job out of college, I was working for Pac-12 Networks on the business side.
Oh, did you know Bob Schmelsley? No?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he was one of the other side.
Did you make that name up?
No, not a
I was
bad
gonna
funny
say, no, I
name.
know the name, but I think he worked for Conference, right? Did he work for the Conference?
No, he worked for the network, but he was over on certainly on the production side.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
no. Oh, the name is really familiar,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Smells like.
I was
Yeah.
not there
Yeah.
long enough to
Yeah,
really
yeah.
know everybody in the company. So I was there for less than a year, and then I moved to Alaska.
Okay.
So that was kind of the step I took.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting step. When I was first in the business, and I was married already, and my wife said, we can go anywhere but Alaska, right? And in broadcasting and, reporting, you may have to. And so I never applied in Alaska. And then she ultimately did say that we couldn't go to the English-speaking television station in Guam.
Oh.
Either, which ironically, you don't know her yet. You'll meet her though, Laura. There's a former female sportscaster from around here, and she actually still does some work for Channel 5. Gina Miller, Jeff, you know Gina.
I know Gina.
Gina worked at the English-speaking TV station in Guam. It was always, back in the day, we looked in Broadcasting Magazine, and it was always available.
Oh, yeah.
That job was always available. Gina hauled off and took it. So, but you go to Alaska to do what?
So just like I went to Alaska not because I felt like I had to, but because I actually wanted to. I thought it would be a really cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I moved up there to write sports for a local newspaper in
Okay.
Fairbanks, which is the northern interior city
Mm-hmm.
in Alaska. So I was writing for the Fairbanks Daily News Miner. I was covering sports. I was covering a lot of prep sports. There's also a college up there, University of Alaska Fairbanks, which has Division I hockey, and then everything else is Division II, except for rifle. Actually, that's
Great at
Division I.
rifle.
Yeah, I was gonna say rifle. That's Division I. So I covered a lot of Division I hockey up there, and then some really cool stuff like sled dog racing, and like local Alaskan sports. Like there's this event called the World Eskimo Indian Olympics up there every year, which was really cool to cover. I got to cover a couple Midnight Sun baseball games. So yeah, I mean, it was an incredible year.
They play that at midnight, the Midnight Sun baseball game.
So they started at 10 p.m.
Okay.
And they play it with no lights. It usually ends around like 1 in the morning.
Really?
Mhm.
That's pretty cool. It's like daylight. It's not like dark kind of day. Is it full on daylight at midnight?
So at that point, it's like a sunset. It
Okay.
would probably feel like the equivalent of like this. You can still see the sun, like it's usually like skimming the horizon a little bit,
Okay.
but it's like a little bit dusky at that time.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still like it still feels like it's daylight outside. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. My niece, as I shared with you, is at Alaska Fairbanks right now getting her master's in something. And she's from Colorado. So the cold doesn't bother her as much as the darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the other thing.
Like the sun doesn't come up until like 10.
Yeah, this time of year you get almost no sun, right?
Yeah, and when the sun does come up, it just like skims the horizon. Like you'll never feel it on your skin. Like you'll never
Yeah.
like feel that warmth of the sun because
Yeah.
it doesn't get up high enough to
Oh,
do that.
geez.
But it comes up and it just like skims the horizon, and you'll get like a nice sunrise, sunset for
Yeah,
a couple
then again,
hours of
this
the day,
time-
and then it goes away.
Yeah, this time of year, I don't guess you're going out there with like your bathing suit on or your skin out much, right?
No,
or you're going to
no,
freeze
no,
to
no.
death. Yeah. You covered the sled dogs?
Yeah, I covered sled dog racing. One of my favorite events that I covered was the Yukon Quest, which is a 1,000-mile sled dog race.
Wow.
There's 2 of them in Alaska. Most people are more familiar with the Iditarod,
Right.
which is Anchorage's race, and then the Yukon Quest is Fairbanks's race. But yeah, it starts in Fairbanks, it ends in Whitehorse, Yukon, so in Canada, and they alternate starts every year. So some years it starts in Whitehorse, some years it starts in Fairbanks. But it was an unbelievable event to cover, and the Iditarod is, like I said, probably more well known.
It is, yeah.
But it's actually, the Yukon Quest is known for being the more challenging of the 2 races because it happens the month prior, so it's colder. And also it happens in an area of the state where the climate in general is just a little bit rougher. And then there's half as many checkpoints. So with the checkpoints with the Iditarod, like you can go, 50 miles or so between checkpoints, and with the Yukon Quest, you could easily be going up to like 100 miles. So, which adds an added level of difficulty.
Sure.
So anyways, that was the race that I covered. It was really cool. I got to, with the Quest, it's nice because half of the checkpoints you can actually drive to. So I was able to drive to a lot of the checkpoints and talk to the mushers outside. It was 40 below when I was covering it. So
geez.
very cold. You have to be prepared for the elements and the weather. Like you can't, record anything with your phone because your phone, dies upon impact
Oh.
of the cold.
Really?
Yeah, no, you can't use your phone out there. So,
So you're taking notes?
so you have to write with a pencil because your pen will freeze. So you're writing with a pencil if you're writing it all.
With mittens on, I hope.
Oh, well, no, you'd have to take them off sometimes to write. It's a whole
Frostbite?
thing, you really have
But
to
you can't leave your skin out in 40 below for very long, can you?
not very long, but you can do it for a little bit.
Wow.
And then, yeah, I mean, and there was no internet. That was the other thing. There were checkpoints where there was no internet, which was a whole other issue.
Yeah, so how do you feed, right? How do you get it from here to there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, like, how do you look up random things? You can't look anything up, so you have to just they give you like a booklet that you can use to reference stuff. But it was unlike anything I have ever covered and probably ever will cover.
Back in my day, we didn't have the internet, so we're very familiar with not looking things up. But you're right. I mean, that would cripple any of us now. We're always just look it up. Yeah. So was the greatest challenge sort of getting, even in your world, as driving it in whatever you drove? I assume it was a car or a truck, not a snowmobile or something, right? Getting point to point, was that the biggest challenge of covering this thing?
Yes. So I drove my Subaru Legacy, which I had really intense snow tires on at the time. I took them off before coming here. I did use them in Boston. But yeah, so I drove my Subaru Legacy to the checkpoints, but you have to drive slow, like the roads are super icy. Also in Fairbanks, they don't plow.
You're kidding.
Because they only have 2 snow plows. Like they cannot plow the whole city. So
you just have to drive through it.
You just drive through it and you drive slow. But so you get really accustomed to driving on like ice and sliding around everywhere. But yeah, a lot of fishtailing going on. Like whenever you go around a corner, you feel like your back tires just like flap.
And you didn't. There's no snow in Eastern California. You didn't.
Oh, there is actually.
There is.
So I grew up.
You grew up with a little bit.
Yeah, I grew up right next to a ski resort. So I grew up ski racing. So I'm familiar with the snow. But no, driving to checkpoint was tough. The other thing too, I think I remember, and I'm going back, having to find a place to plug your car in, because you have to plug your car in so it heats up the engine block. So like my car was winterized, so I have like an engine block heater.
Wow.
And I still have the plug hanging out the front. People are like, why don't you tuck that in or take it off? I'm like, no, it adds character, it's cool. But yeah, so I remember trying to find a good place to plug my car in so I could start it the next day.
With that plug on there, you can actually park in the close spots that have the electric stuff in them. You see what I'm saying? And
I don't know if it's the same situation.
It's okay, it doesn't matter. So I got a plug.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. That way you get to park close.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was at Ballia, they had like 3 spots right in the front. And they were the people with the electric cars.
Yeah.
They were always empty. I'm like, I had to park there.
Yeah.
But I'm a gas guzzler. Can't help myself. I'm a Detroit guy.
That's right.
I don't know. Maybe we'll all be going to electric. Maybe we don't. I don't know. So that's such an interesting start to a career. How long were you there?
So I was there for over a year, and I would have stayed longer because I really was enjoying it. But I moved up there in 2019, and then the pandemic obviously started in 2020. So all of the sports up there kind of shut down, and there wasn't much left for me to do. So I would have probably had to start like writing news for them.
That's the worst.
News during COVID, I just didn't that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I had been interested in, I was writing at the time. I was writing for a newspaper, and I had been interested in potentially doing something with TV. I wasn't sure kind of in what capacity yet, but that's when I moved out to Boston and started freelancing out there, just because like I knew there were so many opportunities out there, and I figured that would be a good place for me to start doing that.
And out of curiosity, was that because you could have moved anywhere? There were opportunities in all the big markets, right? Was it because of your dad's affinity with the Boston teams?
Yeah, I mean, when I moved out there, I was also getting a master's degree at BU.
Okay.
So I was kind of like trying to figure out how to, make the most out of that time out there, or just the time during the pandemic. Excuse me. But no, I think that was definitely part of it. Like I had family out there. Sorry, I'm like losing my voice.
Yeah, no worries.
Bad timing.
Get her. Yeah, you get her.
Thank you. Yeah, my polar seltzer. Yeah, so I definitely I did have family out there. My dad's family was still out there.
Yeah.
So that was definitely kind of part of it, because during that time, like, you don't really know what's going on, or like, where am I going to live? Especially like, I was going into this journalism degree, and I was like, I don't really want to live with roommates. So that was like a good opportunity for me to be out there, be around some family, and start this degree while also like finding new freelance opportunities as the world started to open up again.
So undergrad and graduate degrees in journalism, or what are they?
In undergrad, I studied communication and data science, and my graduate degree was in journalism.
Good.
All right.
Yeah. I think it's good to also, in the broadcast side of our business, to have the journalism, because you don't realize until you get into broadcasting how much you write. And I got a broadcasting degree and then got into broadcasting, and they're like, how much journalism have you done? And I'm like, a couple classes. And then all of a sudden I get thrown into it, and I'm like, I write every day. I'm writing all the time. What the hell? Luckily, I like it. And I learned it quickly, but I learned it on the fly. So that's a wise choice.
Hey, Rarities is asking, Laura, what drew you to the Rangers?
Well, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer, right? Like, this was such a great opportunity. I mean, I've been covering a lot of sports out in Boston for a long time, but Nesson knew, and because I had spoken to them about it, like, I want to cover a big league team. I want to cover, whether that be a major league team, an NHL team, but I want to take that next step. And they were super supportive, and there just weren't any opportunities out there for me at the time. Jemai was covering the Red Sox, and Sophia had been with the Bruins for such a long time. And yeah, I mean, this off season, the Rangers posted that job, and I, applied to it, like, hoping that I would get it. But, it's like a dream opportunity, right? And I mean, I think with the Rangers, you look at the lineup. I mean, we were looking at the lineup just earlier in this episode. It's such a good lineup. This is going to be such a great team. And I think just from an organizational perspective, I really liked what they were doing with, I didn't know at the time what it would be called. They're calling it RSN, Ranger Sports Network. But, I knew that they were taking their broadcast in-house. I knew they were trying to do something different with it. And I thought that was really cool. It was something that I wanted to be a part of. And I want to be a part of a broadcast that fans can watch. And that's something that, I know that the Rangers are really making a priority for this year.
Yeah, any of the young people that reach out to me in this day and age, and it's been this way for a few years, that get into the business, want to get into the business, I tell them, work for the team.
Mm-hmm.
If you can. You're working for the team. And that's the way. I mean, that's the way of the future. Because I got news for you. The Foxes, the Bally's, all of NASNs, all of them of the world, they could go away. Believe me, I experienced it. They go away. Team ain't going anywhere, right? Team is going to be there. And more of these teams will start having their own broadcast. And the next thing you know, you're still there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who carries the broadcast. The team produces the broadcast. So, yeah, you've landed in a really good spot. Good for you.
We all silly like the mayor.